I mean, my earliest recollections, I might have even met you earlier than that, because in 1976, I actually came, originally I was going to be the men's assistant volleyball coach when Miles Pabst was hired in 1976 to reinvent or to bring back the men's volleyball program, which had been dropped a few years prior to that. And I was the assistant coach at Long Beach State. Miles was my head coach, so when he got the job, I came down with I guess it was a promise of an assistant coach's position, which never materialized. So I just worked summer camps.
Because he left.
Well, no, actually, prior to him leaving, they didn't have the funding.
What we have to understand here, Michael, is that in those days, which were the same days that we made a transition from Division II to Division I, money was not an asset. And so a lot of head coaches were part-time. All assistant coaches were part-time. Give you an example, in 1976, the year prior to going into Division I, as the head basketball coach, I was the only school, UCI, in the United States that did not have a full-time assistant coach, which is just unheard of. And a little later, we may discuss moving into Division I and moving without the wherewithal to compete. And even Dan Aldridge, the chancellor, told me years later in the 80s that he had no idea how much it took to be competitive on that level without scholarship money, recruiting money, et cetera, et cetera.
And staff and facilities. So yeah, it was. So anyway, getting back to my early days on campus. So I worked volleyball camps 76 to about 1980, and then Dean Andrea, a mutual friend of ours, who was the women's basketball coach at the time, and then prior to that, he was, I think, one of your assistant men's basketball coaches. I used to run into Dean down at Corona Mar Beach. We'd play volleyball during the summer. And he knew that the women's head job was going to open, and he said, why don't you apply? And at that time, I was a high school volleyball coach. And I thought, yeah, what the heck? Applied, ended up getting the job. So 1980, as you mentioned, was my first year that I was here a lot, although it was not a full-time position at the time. But in 1981, it became a full-time position. I left all my other jobs, teaching elementary school, teaching high school, and coaching high school to become full-time.
And the bakery.
Yeah, and the bakery, to become full-time at UCI.